Trinity Lighting welcomes you to our store
at 123 Western Main Road, St. James.
Trinity Lighting carries a wide range of bulbs such as incandescent, halogen, CFL, and LEDs for any application. We are specialized in light bulbs and parts for medical, marine, residential, and commercial use. Contact us today at 868-628-8373. Our professional team is ready to assist you with all your lighting needs.
Rock and roll rebooted. Last night we had a lot of technical issues to be resolved. Looks like we are fortunate tonight. Unfortunately, we don't have Felicia. She's, I think, out on the town, probably having a little break. So we had a guest scheduled to come on tonight to commence the show, but in his absence, I will just have to speak on the matter in his absence. Now, Daryl, if you can put up the letter, right, okay. Do you have a letter to Citizens Union, or a letter written on Citizens Union on behalf of to Pestex? Okay, all right. So the background of this story is that an employee of Pestex by the name of Daryl McDowell took a position during the COVID period not to be vaccinated. And that was during the vaccination drive and the safe zone period. And one of the things that the company did was to take an initiative to write its clients asking them if they were interested in having a vaccinated or unvaccinated technician come out to their commercial and or residential locations. Needless to say, when you take the preemptive strike action to ask your clients if they wanted a vaccinated or unvaccinated technician, they all opted at that time, with the history of the COVID, the pros and cons, and everybody had an opinion, everybody was a medical doctor on the issue, to stipulate that all of them responded in the affirmative that they only wanted vaccinated persons to come onto the job site. So what that resulted in is that this employee, Mr. McDowell, was left for approximately 3 months, quote unquote, unemployed. Because whenever he turned up to the job, they would ask him if he's jabbed, and he would say no. And they would indicate, none of the clients that they have contacted have changed their position on having unvaccinated workers on their premises. So we subsequently wrote a letter on his behalf to Pestex indicating to have a meeting to resolve the issue, because we thought it was untenable that a company would go beyond any of the regulations out there in the public space, even Ministry of Health guidelines, that not only do you comply with the health regulations at the time, you go out there, initiate a survey, and ask people their option, knowing well what the response would be. So here you had a situation where an employee was put in an untenable situation because of the zeal of a company. Having said that, when we wrote the company, we also indicated to them politely that we will provide Mr. McDowell with all options available for redress. And in the absence of a response to the letter, we did make available to Mr. McDowell one of our internal specialists, industrial relations consultant. You would have seen him on some of the shows. You would see him also on Rum Shop Talks program, Mr. Stephen Matheson. Daryl, if you can just put up the email in which we wrote Mr. Matheson. No, that's the letter to Pestex. Well, you can. Okay, so, all right. Okay, essentially, we wrote Mr. Matheson, and Mr. Matheson engaged the company. And as a result of that engagement, there was a resolution, and Mr. Dwayne McDowell was separated from the company, and a financial settlement was paid to him. And then he has subsequently gone on to take that sum of money and to go embark on a entrepreneurial operations. So out of that crisis where a company forced a person to stay at home because of the requests of the clients, it has turned positive that he is now up and about and he started his own business. So that is just one example of what we do. I'm going to try to put the letter up later on in the show, Senator Darrell, regarding the letter that we wrote on behalf of Mr. McDowell as a demonstration that when persons approach Citizens Union Cutt, our first response actually is to write the person, the individual, the ministry, the company, for conversation and dialogue with the hope of resolving the matter. It's never intended to be contentious or litigious or acrimonious. But in this instance, Pestex failed to respond to the letter. So we did exactly what the letter stipulated. We'll make all available options to Mr. McDowell, and we did. and that has resulted favorably on his behalf. So he couldn't be here tonight, but I just wanted to give you a background to one of the success stories coming out of a very zealous approach by a company to basically separate the employees from the jabbed and the unjabbed, placing the unjabbed in an untenable position where they are not working without income. Having said that, we're going to bring on our other guest tonight. If you can bring on, right. Good night, Sherwin.
A pleasant good night to you.
Good night. So this is your second rodeo with us.
Yes, it is.
You were here last night and you're here again tonight. Well, the difference between last night and tonight is that we seem to have resolved the technical issues that we were having. And there were many, right? I can get on, and when I look at it on Facebook, it was buffering and so on. So I heard a bit of what you spoke to Felicia with regarding your matter. For those that didn't see the show last night, which wasn't much of a show, for their benefit and for the listeners tonight, let's start at the top. I have information here that when we met, you provided and made available to me. We will dissect it and we'll explain your situation and your plight and your present situation. So take it to the top from that infamous day of reckoning where you were on duty and a port employee came to work, although he was off in another capacity, to what they say in local parlance, to make a hustle, doing something else. And you can start right there, and I would interject only for clarification to the viewing and listening audience.
Yes. So again, I am number 32848, Assistant Constable Sherwin Edwards, attached to the Port Police Department, by extension the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. On the 8th of January of 2020, I had cause to engage with a port employee who was off, and in so doing wanted to enter the facility. To note, to enter the facility, you must have a valid wharf pass, also with gears of your PPE, your personal protective equipment, in order to secure yourself whilst performing your duty on the port facility. Right? On that said morning, both entities were missing, and as such, he could not have gained access. In so doing, there was a fight, there was a push. He was arrested and charged, brought before the court, and that is the first segment of his demise. By extension, supposed to be setback, but unfortunately, that's not happening for a suspension to take place.
Right. I'm looking at one of the original, what I would say, reports, and I use that loosely, that you provided, dated May 13th, January 20th, 2020, which you outlined a series of events and the interaction and the altercation it resulted in between you and the person. But most notably, on page 2, you were instructed by Estate Sergeant Raj to go to the Port of Spain Hospital to seek medical attention. Why was it necessary for you to seek medical attention?
Yes, because I suffered bruises because I was pushed against the chain link fence. They were bleeding from my arm. So in order to charge him for the assault, we was to also ensure that I was assaulted with the scuffle that we had. And there was one, and I seek medical attention, and that is why he was able to charge for the assault of the officer while performing his duty.
Okay. Sergeant Raj, is he still working at the port at the moment?
No, unfortunately, his demise came as of December last year. He's now deceased.
Right, and the reason I asked that question is that not only did you make reference to him, this letter is addressed to Inspector Juggernaut. So that's why I was asking you if Raj had instructed you to go to the hospital. I see you've addressed
Right.
the letter to Juggernaut. So that would explain why you could not have submitted a report to Raj.
Right, because what happened is when the incident happened, the then Sergeant Raj was the sergeant in charge of the charge room where the sentry is. So that is the person who's taking the reports, and as such, to charge for the assault. I cannot charge for the assault. I was assaulted. So I am now considered as the virtual complainant. And Sergeant Raj is now would be what would have been the charging officer for the assault. So that would happen in the
Okay.
cases of assault. So that is why I had at the time Acting Inspector Juggernaut was the inspector at the time.
Right. So right.
Yes.
And if I could ask polite, he's presently still with us, so to speak.
Who is that? Who
Juggernaut.
Sergeant? Well,
Inspector Juggernaut.
well, not
Has
in the
he
system as
retired?
we speak. No, he's under suspension as we speak. Yeah, he's
All
under
right. So
suspension.
right. So we'll get to that then. That seems like an interesting. All right. Now I notice in the set of correspondence there are, and for the viewing audience, I will just make reference. You can probably just amplify on that the charges laid were contrary to section 70B4 of the Port Authority Act, Chapter 5101, contravening a lawful direction contrary to section 70B of the said Port Authority Act 50.0, resisting arrest and offenses against the person, Act Chapter 11.08. If you can just tell the audience, just sort of flesh out those various charges that emanated from the altercation.
Right. So when the struggle ensued, I would have now placed my hand on him and say you are under arrest. Right? So he resisted. So that is considered resisting arrest. Because he made a few attempts to enter the facility, he would have used obscene language. I am an officer sanctioned by the Port Authority, dressed in uniform. I am also precepted. So with all of these in place, he has had to now take an instruction from me, because that is what the facility put me there in order to protect the facility. So by him not taking my instructions, he cursed me one way, and not taking my instruction that because he want to enter, he contravened the lawful direction that was given to him on that given day.
Okay. Right. Right. So what series of events proximate to that altercation, you going to the hospital and filing that initial report, transpired?
After I went to the hospital, we came back to Central Police Station. So you have got this fingerprint, because we was preparing everything for the next day for him to be brought before the court. Right? Now, after the court was finished, I was instructed by Acting Inspector Juggernaut that I have to write the department stating, because remember you're away from on the port, so you had to account for time. So in so doing, Sergeant Raj had also account for the assault, and I had to account for the other 3 charges, and we would have 2 set of reports would have supposed to go to HR. So we first would have wrote to Acting Inspector Juggernaut, he would have forwarded to the superintendent, and then to the HR manager. And in doing that, the individual is supposed to be suspended, because the matter is still ongoing. That's what's supposed to be the lead up to his suspension.
Right. Was he suspended?
I am not there now, but from information received, no. But when I was there for the few months, no, he was not suspended. And that was 4 or 5 months into 2020.
So from to the best of your recollection, he continued to work post-incident, notwithstanding all that has transpired. Court appearance, report being submitted as requested.
Yes.
Right. Okay, what was the management of the port's attitude towards this incident at this juncture?
Well, I had a conversation with the HR manager, the then HR manager, I should say, Miss Kaden, right? And I spoke to her one on one, and I'm telling her why I am being treated unfairly, knowing that you all trained me to do a job. It is being done, and yet she told me she don't have no report considering the port employee, and as such, she cannot suspend him. So I told her, can I write to your office directly? She told me no. It must pass through my department. But I said, ma'am, it's not reaching you. And I told her outright, I said, always playing games. It is always playing games.
So the HR manager, then HR manager at the time, refused to intervene ostensibly on the basis she was not in receipt of your report.
Yes.
And secondly, if you offered to make it available to her, she cannot receive the report directly from you.
No, yes, she said she cannot. It must be departmental. It must. She cannot take it directly from me at all.
Right. And at the time, from whom would she have accepted the report from once you submitted it?
Would have been the superintendent.
And that superintendent would have been whom?
Superintendent Ali.
Right. Did you then make the report available to Superintendent Ali so it could go up the chain of command and end up at the on the HR manager's desk?
Well, I even show my skating right where, with the report I submitted, there was a signature from Acting Inspector Jagannath. And I told her, I said, well, this is what you'll have to use because I don't want you to say I am changing the script in order to implicate the gentleman. So I was using this same one to hand her and said, ma'am, here is Acting Inspector Jagannath's signature on this report. Please comply. And she said no. And which I find very baffling.
I agree because a new independent report, you would have had time to reflect and insert other bits of information that may be more favorable to you than the person to whom the report was written about. So you wanted to use the original report as presented contemporaneously at the time?
Yes.
And what was her response when you indicated that the report that you would like to submit to her has Jagannath's signature on it, and it will be prudent, practical, transparent, and fair to use that said report?
She said, I cannot take that report, sir. I cannot. It must pass through the department. So I told her, I said, so why don't you make a call as of now? Call the superintendent and say, Mr. Edwards is coming over to hand over the report. She still did not give me no form of entry to make sure the report was to receive on her desk.
What was your next move, having run into that roadblock?
Well, knowing that I was getting phone calls to my phone, considering myself and my son, knowing I went to, because before long I had a previous matter with the port and HR, which I dealt with properly, and they told me they would have my back. Now I'm going to them now to have my back, and I was shut down, and I felt all hope was lost.
Right, but and I think the viewing audience, I'm trying to speak on their behalf listening. The report that you originally wrote, and it had the signature of Mr. Jagannath on it, did that report eventually get in the HR department, even if it was via airplane, boat, or train?
From my recollection, no. I was able to write on the 15th of November of 2021 a new report to the new HR manager outlining this stuff all over again.
And what's the name of the new HR manager?
I think Miss Brenda John.
Brenda John. Was Brenda John more favorable to your situation in terms of getting the report, when you look at the matter, than the previous HR manager?
Yes, I must say, because I was able to get the report in. But what kind of changed her situation though is that since that time until now, she has not responded to me via phone call, via letter, via nothing concerning or via email to state because she told me she was going to launch an investigation and I don't need the investigation is in space. I really don't know. I have not from last year November till now, nothing have received from Miss Brenda John. I have been keep on submitting.
So Ms. Brenda John has a report of the
Yes.
incident, but not
Right.
the report, original report that you wrote, signed by Mr. Juggernaut.
If my recollection serves me correct, I gave her a file to show that said report was submitted. So she has a copy of it as well in her possession. Because
So
she was
she
given a
has-
report.
So she has two reports on the same incident.
Yes.
So you
Yes.
have made some progress in submitting the original report with the signature
Yes.
of Mr. Juggernaut, which is very important to authenticate that report, in addition to a supplemental report on the said matter that she is in possession of.
Yes.
Right. However, you don't know if the investigation has been launched.
No, I don't know. I was never interviewed by no one. No one contacted my home or my relatives' homes. Nothing of such thus far.
Are you currently working at the port?
No, I'm not.
And what would be the reasons for you not working at the port when the person in question, Mr. Arnold Julian, with whom you had the altercation, as far as to the best of your recollection, is still working at the port?
Well, when I went in to talk to Miss Wright, I told Miss Wright what was taking place in my personal life with this said case. I said, threats are coming to my phone. I was not a liked employee in my department, so I couldn't rely on my department to assist me in no way possible. They don't assist at all. But in so doing, there were other elements from the police system was helping me so I could have strive and move along within the system. And when I went to her, she did not point me to know, as I tell her, I'm stressed out. I said I am stressed out with the situation. I said, you told me from the last time you were going to have my back with any intuition that come before you. I said, right now you're shutting me down. And she never reached out either.
Without getting into too many specific details, because I would be thinking it might be important to explain your sort of being quote unquote off the grid.
Yes.
In general, without making it too much of a personal disclosure, outside the four corners of the frame, if you could allude to what personal information you would have made available in that conversation.
To Miss Wright?
Yeah.
Well, I told her that my
McDowell. Mr. Dwayne McDowell is a member of the Citizens Union Trinidad and Tobago, hereafter referred to as Cutt. He has requested Cutt assistance to resolve the untenable position whereby Pestex Limited has not rostered Mr. McDowell for work and withheld his salary since November 2021. This letter is written January 14, 2022. We trust that Mr. McDowell's employment with Pestex will be regularized within 5 days from the date of the receipt of this letter in accordance with good industrial relation practices. Alternatively, Cutt will advise Mr. Dwayne McDowell of all remedies available to him for redress. Signed by the Executive Director of Cutt, Philip Edward Alexander. That, in closing, ladies and gentlemen, is what we do on a almost day-to-day basis. I would like to thank everyone for being part of tonight's show. This was unplanned. We are now normally scheduled to have our program on Thursdays, but because of what transpired last night, we felt important and it had an imperative to have the show on Friday. I think I may have encroached 4 minutes and 30 seconds into Mr. Alexander's time because I think he wants to have a show at 9 and it's now 9:04. I wish to thank all of you for watching and viewing the show, and we will keep you updated with what we do behind the scenes. Good night.